Yeah. Okay.
They join in another. They take about 7.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah. They'll all be feeling sleepy.
No, I'm sure not.
So yes, today's the last lecture.
No, ma'am. We have total 14 modules.
14 modules.
Okay. This is the 11th module.
This is 11. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, with your permission, may we begin?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. A very good afternoon to one and all. At the outset, let me welcome all of you to this very important 11th module, which is a deliberation on a very relevant subject of gender justice at home and workplace, of this online training and capacity building program, of understanding gender, inequality, intersectionality, and social action. I, on behalf of Gender Sensitization and Equality Initiative Club, would like to welcome our esteemed resource person, Professor Dr. Manjula Batra, Professor in North Cap University, Gurgaon, and former Dean, Faculty of Law, Jamia and Islamia, to the session. I also extend a very warm welcome to Professor Dr. Ravi Gupta, Director Mains, heads of the various programs, gender chapters, and all the participants. Before I invite ma'am to take this topic ahead, I'd like to take this privilege to introduce Professor Batra to our participants. Dr. Manjula Batra, Shweta, can you please mute?
Yes.
Ma'am, could you please mute? There's an echo otherwise.
Okay.
Should I also mute?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it's okay. Dr. Manjula Batra, who is currently serving as a professor of law in North Cap University, Gurgaon, was the former dean at the Faculty of Law, Jamia Milia, Islamia. She serves as the chairperson of the Ordinance Committee of Jamia Milia, Islamia, and is a member of editorial board of the magazine entitled Johar, published by Jamia Milia, Islamia. Her keen areas of research include gender issues and law, crimes against women within the family, and environmental law and policy. Among her many contributions, ma'am has significantly contributed to the all-round growth and development of Faculty of Law at Jamia Milia Islamia, and was the first person to be appointed as a lecturer at the Faculty of Law, Jamia Milia Islamia. Professor Batra has supervised a number of PhD scholars and has also worked with the Center of Environmental Law, WWF, India, under the aegis of the Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India, pertaining to citizens' rights, duties, and responsibilities in environmental law of the country. Ma'am has also worked with the Swiss Embassy relating to policy, laws, issues concerning companies in India. One of the areas of her specialization being gender justice at home and workplace, we are so pleased to have such a stalwart amongst us to deliberate on this topic. Ma'am, we express our thanks for joining us to take this session, and we request you to please take this session ahead. But before that, two small reminders to our participants. I request all the participants to fill their attendance and the feedback form whenever it shall be shared during the session. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shilpa, for such kind words. You know, you make me go down the memory lane. Yeah, which is always beautiful and at the same time painful, because, you know, you did so much for all institutions. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and you had to leave finally, right?
Yes.
Very good afternoon to all my participants, and of course, my faculty members here, Dr. Shweta, Shilpa, the head of the department of the law school at Raja Agrasen Institute, and I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me, and so that I can be on this platform and share with you a lot of my personal experiences also, and otherwise what the law is about, and the sociological aspect, and other aspects of gender justice prevalent in our country. Now, you must have already heard a lot about gender justice these past weeks, ever since the course started, okay? And you must also be aware that why did gender justice emerge as a basic human right which should be given to every woman or girl in the world, so much so, more in our country. Now, there was a time in ancient India, if we go back to the Vedas, that there was some kind of equality between women and men at that time, and women used to participate in the rituals along with men. But gradually, in the post-Vedic period, there was deterioration, etc., and there were, other reasons coming up, and then there was, female infanticide, dowry came in, and all kind of evils prevailed in the society. Now, gender justice, what is the reason for gender biases and gender, you can say, prejudices in our country? We've come a long way since we got independence. We've got the Constitution of India. We have the preamble. We have the fundamental rights. We have the directive principles of state policy. There is no discrimination anywhere between men and women. We are given equal rights as much as men are given. Still, when we walk out of the house in the morning, we are on road, or we go to our workplace, or we interact with somebody, or even when somebody comes home, okay, we can sense the discrimination which is prevalent against women. Laws have been in place under Article 15, Subclause 3, which obliges the state or the government to come with special laws for women and children. There have been plenty of laws in place, all right? Yet, we are seeing that crimes against women, discrimination against women continues every day. If you look at the national crime statistics, we find that rapes are happening even after what we experienced in the Nirbhaya rape case. And we had the new sections incorporated by the 2013 amendment into the IPC. Still, nothing has changed. Very little has changed. Equality is the foundation, or we can say is the bedrock of the Constitution of India. But where are we equal? What are the reasons? What are the factors? Okay, reasons in the rural area could be a little different from reasons existing in the urban areas. But per se, there'll be reasons which will be similar in rural and urban areas. Subordinate status of women, because she's considered inferior. The discrimination is based on sex, more so because they say the male sex is superior. Superior because he's stronger physically. But when we talk about gender justice, we do not look at discrimination on the basis of physical discrimination. Okay? We move from the platform, we move from the premise that there is gender discrimination which has been constructed by the society at large. The differences in men and women are a construct of the society. It was not made by God. We are not talking about biological differences here. That is nature. We don't take into that difference at all when we talk about gender justice and gender discrimination and gender bias and gender prejudices. Please remember that. We are moving from another premise, all right? We are dealing with stereotypes. We are dealing with the patriarchal mindset. What is a patriarchal mindset? If you go back to ancient India, kinship was acknowledged, all right? And the head of the family was a man. He ruled. He ruled his wife. He ruled his children. He ruled the members of the joint family. He ruled members of the extended family. He ruled the servants. He ruled everybody who came in contact with him. He was treated like the Lord. There was a breakdown of this joint family gradually. We know there are now nuclear families. From this aspect of kinship or head of the family, the patriarchal notion got another meaning, okay? And it entered into the domain of unequal power relations between men and women. So this is what we mean when we talk about gender discrimination or gender justice. We are not fighting now against head of the family. We are fighting, or we are struggling, we are trying to change the patriarchal mindset which is embedded in the soil of our country, not only in India, but across the globe. Of course, the nuances, the elements, the components of the patriarchal system would differ from culture to culture. But largely, the basic meaning, the basic concept of subjugation of women, inferior status of women, the weaker sex that women are looked upon as, continues to be acknowledged and looked upon in every society across the globe. Now, what is this patriarchy concept that we see in everyday life, which I will discuss with you, and then go to crimes against women committed at home and the gender justice problem at home and at the workplace. I'll give you a few examples, students. If you've read Kamla Bhasin's book, you'll be able to understand what is patriarchy. What is the concept of patriarchy? She explains it beautifully, okay? A little girl said, when she was asked, how are you treated at home? You know what she replied? She said, I heard my family was unhappy when I was born. They wanted a boy. Preference for a son. Okay? So when a little girl is born, nobody congratulates her the way, or the parents, the way they would congratulate the parents when a son is born. Even nowadays, the younger people, when they give birth, still it is in their mind that, oh, we hope we have a son first. Why? We are contributing to patriarchy again, to the same mindset. Okay? Another thing. The girl was asked, what do you do at home? Which boys don't. She said, I have to help my mother with the household chores. My brothers don't. Okay? So who's got the burden of household chores? The girl, but not the brother. Okay? Discrimination. Then, third point, I could not go out and meet my friends and play with them. My brothers were allowed to go out and play with his friends. He was allowed to come home late also. But I was told that before it is dark, you must be home. Where is the discrimination? Lack of freedom and mobility for girls. Right? Another form of discrimination. I often saw, the little girl said, my father beat my mother. What is this? Wife beating within the house. Okay? The little girl imbibes it and she thinks, my mother is accepting it, so maybe it is accepted. I might have to accept it also. So who's going to break the circle? Nobody. It continues. Okay? Then another point. My brothers were worse than my father. They didn't want me to speak to any boys. Again, male control, patriarchal control. Not allowed to converse with boys. I go further. This is, of course, it was at a time when the property rights were really, co-pastorna was not there. And they said that, the little girl said, I have no share in my father's property. I have no share in my husband's property. I don't have a home which I can call my own home. Okay? This part remains even today. Unless certain girls ask for their rights, they are not given. So again, there is discrimination. then I have to submit myself to my husband whenever he wants, even if I'm ill, even if I'm not up to it. No control over a woman's body, over a girl's body. She has no autonomy over herself. Again, the concept of marital rape comes in. Okay? Then we go further, students. Okay? Say that reproductive rights. My husband will decide when I should have a child. My in-laws will decide when I should have a child. I have no say in the matter. And if I conceive and I have a girl, they'll tell me to go for a test. And they tell me to abort the girl child. I have no decision-making power over my own body, over reproductive rights, or my right to health. Again, discrimination. So these are the different examples, students, that I've given you of discrimination of women, prejudices against women, which are carried forward since times immemorial. Now let me come to gender injustice, which is done within the family. This is, of course, discrimination. Even, for example, the girl and the boy are sitting at the table and having food. In many families, they'll say, let the son be served first. Let the son choose what he wants. The girl can wait, or the mother can wait. Let the father and the son eat first. Then again, there is discrimination in matters of distribution of food. So when girls grow up in such environment, in such circumstances, they are bound to have lower self-esteem, low confidence, they'll have a lower, approach to everything in life. They'll consider themselves inferior and subjugated. Now, when it comes to violence committed against women within the family, one form is, of course, wife beating. There are different other forms which I can talk about. There'll be marital rape. There'll be dowry death. There'll be incest these days. Okay? There'll be female infanticide, female feticide. So all these would come within the family. Now, particularly focusing on domestic violence. For years, students, wife beating was a troublesome area for NGOs, for people who were working for women and children in India. There were a lot of movements for bringing in some law. India also ratified CEDAW, which is an international instrument, the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Then there was Beijing Declaration, where there was platform for action for creating institutions which would protect women in member state countries. India was a party to it. So India did have, the National Commission for Women, and then a number of legislations emerged gradually. Now, to deal with dowry death and, the burning of, woman, for dowry, there was Section 498A, which was added to Indian Penal Code in the year 1983. Now, this particular section dealt with cruelty committed against women for dowry demands or for non-dowry demands also, but it only focused on married women, not other women, all right? So there were situations whenever a woman went under Section 498A of the IPC and filed an application, the result was the marriage would invariably break, okay? The husband would never take the woman back again because he would say, hamari naak kat gayi. The in-laws would say, hamari naak kat gayi. So invariably the marriage would break. So this created a lot of problem for women because they themselves became hostile witnesses. After even filing petitions, applications under Section 498A, because they thought that they had nowhere to go. because even in divorce proceedings at that time, they would be thrown out of the house, or the parents would not accept them. They would be on road, or if some NGOs would help them, they would get shelter. But that also, it was not given very well at all. They were in a very bad state. So after years of deliberation by the National Commission for Women, by the Lawyers Collective, it's an NGO which is being run by Indira Jaising, okay? They brought out a bill which finally became an act, okay, by the Parliament on the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, okay? Now the idea or the objective of this act, all the participants or the students, I can still address you as students, is that it's a civil law remedy. You know, Section 498A is a criminal law remedy. You go to jail. The man will go to jail, or the in-laws will go to jail, or both would go to jail, right? So when you are in jail and it cannot be compounded, it will go to its logical conclusion. But in case of the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, the idea was to give a civil law remedy where the in-laws and the husband would not be sent to jail. Okay? So there were certain orders to be passed by the magistrate, but in essence, the law is not criminal in nature. So many students get confused and they still say it's a criminal remedy, which is not true. It's a civil law remedy. Okay, and it defines domestic violence in various ways. For example, domestic violence includes physical abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse, economic abuse, and even sexual abuse. So within the family, when there is sexual abuse, it can be brought under the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. And remedy can be given by the magistrate in the form of certain orders. There are orders passed under this act, which are: one, protection order. Protection order can be passed against the aggrieved party. The aggrieved party has to be a woman, okay? The aggrieved party can be a married or an unmarried woman. The act is applicable to everybody. I'll just come to that. And when she files, then a protection order can be issued by the magistrate to protect the woman from further violence. Then there is a residence order, which can also be issued, which would say that the woman who is being subject to violence cannot be thrown out on streets. She has a right to continue living in that house till the matter is sorted out. So again, this is a very important change which has been brought about under the Act, which was not available earlier. Then there is a monetary relief order. Monetary relief order means that because of domestic violence, the woman could have suffered maybe physical injury, mental cruelty. She's lost the days that she had to go for work, and because she was hurt medically, physically she could not attend, or mentally she could not attend. She lost her salary, she lost her money, her children suffered injury. So she can get compensation under monetary relief. This is monetary relief benefits and maintenance also. Okay, which would also include maintenance for her children, right? Till the time she can collect herself. Further, there is also an order called a custody order. So this is an interim custody order which is given to the mother, to the woman who is aggrieved. It's a temporary, again, interim, till the time that things are pacified or things can be sorted out. Then students, there is a very important order which is not very commonly used by the judiciary. It is called compensation order. This compensation order, students, is for the civil wrong, which you must have studied under law of tort, okay, done to the woman who was subjected to violence, either mentally or physically. Like, physically, you can see probably the signs on the body, okay? She must have got bruises or things like that. Her limb is broken, her face has been scarred, whatever. But mental abuse can be even deeper, can be even more traumatic. So damages for that can be asked from the husband through the compensation order. So these are the basic orders which can be passed in favor of the woman or the aggrieved party against the respondent. Now, who is the respondent? The respondent earlier was considered only an adult male, but the Supreme Court has replaced it, and it has said that it can be any person, which can be a female relative also. Okay, those changes have been brought about by cases. When I come to cases, you'll understand. So what I'm trying to say is that now things are better under the Act, and even dowry harassment is taken under the Act. Okay, cruelty when it is committed, for that also the Domestic Violence Act can be invoked. But this does not mean that the magistrate who is hearing the case cannot initiate any proceeding under Section 498A of IPC. Both the proceedings can run simultaneously if the magistrate so feels that it is in the interest of the party who has been subjected to violence, the aggrieved party, that it is important that an application is also made under Section 498A of IPC. Okay? Now, for maintenance students, you must remember that when the woman asks for maintenance under the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, she can still ask for maintenance under Section 125 CRPC, or if she's a Hindu, under her other personal laws, that can continue. It does not matter. And in fact, there was a dynamic judgment given last year, I think, or beginning of this year, where before Justice Anju Malhotra, if I'm not mistaken, Supreme Court judge retired. She had given it, and she written down guidelines for the maintenance law, where different applications are made under different sections of maintenance. And she said that guidelines should be followed before awarding a final maintenance to the aggrieved party. Because there's a lot of confusion created, because there are so many options under which the woman can go seeking maintenance. Okay? So the idea behind the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act is to allow the marriage to stay, to create conditions for the marriage to subsist, because the objective of the legislature or the objective of the legislation is not to break a marriage or a family. We are a society where the unit of family is very important. Law does not want women to be aggressive. Law would want women to be assertive. There is a distinction between being assertive or being aggressive. Usually what happens is when a woman asserts her right, people look at it as being aggressive, which is wrong. She's only asserting her right. And it is difficult for people to accept change. But I must assure you that things are changing, and the judiciary does give judgments in favor of women who are subject to violence. Now, apart from married women or unmarried women or mothers or daughters-in-law or mother-in-law or foster daughter, stepdaughter, adopted daughter, it can be a male child also below the age of 18 years, okay? They are all covered by the Domestic Violence Act. And the Domestic Violence Act is secular in approach. Secular means that it applies to all religious community, irrespective of their religion, which is a very good thing, because the objective of the act is to protect women from violence. Now, another group that is protected under the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act students is a live-in relationship. In any case, before this act was enacted, law never barred a man or a woman from living together. Law never stopped that, okay? But now it is giving a legal validity to a live-in relationship. But as in cases, especially the case where Veluswamy's case, where Justice Kadju had given the judgment, and he had explained that what a live-in relationship should be. He said a live-in relationship cannot be where there is a fling only, or there is a one-night stand, or there is a one-time stand, or the woman is a keep only, or a mistress only. But things are changing even regarding that today, okay? But at the time that he made the judgment, after the act came into force, he said that live-in relationship should be construed in the sense of being similar to a common law marriage, where the man and the woman are looked upon as being husband and wife. Like, you're married, like you're living together in a shared household, in a domestic relationship, okay, like a husband and woman would be under the Domestic Violence Act, living in a shared household and having a domestic relationship. So if this kind of circumstance exists, then in a live-in relationship, the woman would get protection similarly to a married woman, and she would get protection not only against her male live-in partner, but also against the relatives of the male in the same manner as the relatives of the husband. But the condition should be that there should be a domestic relationship and a shared household, living like husband and wife, and the society should also treat them and greet them as husband and wife. So this should be the situation, okay? So for this purposes, students, Domestic Violence Act is quite helpful, and it has come a long way, especially in matters of residence order. There are many judgments where, the Supreme Court has held, and even high courts of the country, that if there is a place which is too small and a man and a woman find it difficult to, not meet each other, because the idea of warring partners, like a woman to be protected from violence is that the man should be away from some time and the warring partners should be separated. If it's a big house, she can get one room, she can get a kitchen, and maybe the husband will not come in a way. But where there are houses small, there are only 2 rooms. So then it becomes the duty of the husband to see that his wife is put in a house on rent, okay? And he pays the rent, so that there is no violence committed against the wife by the husband. So the residence order today is part and parcel of Article 21 of the Constitution. So when you look at Article 21 of the Constitution, students, you will find that through many cases decided by the Supreme Court of India, the right to live with dignity, the right to development, the right to, live in an, hostile-free environment, the right to work, the right to be free in speech and expression for women have been recognized in Article 21 of the Constitution by the courts in many cases. Now, I'm going to go and give you some examples before we go further. I'll give you some examples of cases. Now, at one point of time, students, there was a case decided by the Supreme Court in S.R. Batra versus Tarun Batra. Okay? In this case, the Supreme Court said that if the house belongs exclusively to the mother-in-law, okay, then the daughter-in-law cannot claim her right in that house. We can say residence order or right of residence in that house. This particular case or this particular law stayed for many years till the time now the Supreme Court has overruled this case, students, and overruled and said that that was wrong law, where the husband has stayed with the wife, even if it is the house which has belonged to mother-in-law exclusively, the woman, the wife can still claim right of residence in that house. So gradually there is expansion of the right of residence by the Supreme Court in many situations. Okay. Now, students, coming to the duty of courts, when they look at complaints filed under Domestic Violence Act, the Supreme Court has often said that the courts should not dismiss complaints of domestic violence, saying that certain women misuse the act. Certain women lie about violence. Okay? the Supreme Court said that the onus lies on the court. The onus lies on the judges to see how much of truth there is in what the girl or the woman is saying. And they cannot abdicate their duty and frivolously dismiss a petition by saying, oh, the woman has implicated A, B, C, D in a particular case. But yes, the Supreme Court has warned in cases that she should not extend, this Domestic Violence Act into including father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, maybe extended family, okay, without even they having stayed together in a joint family setup. So here, the Supreme Court has warned against misuse, but at the same time, it said that the objective of Domestic Violence Act cannot be given up, okay? Because after all, it's an enabling legislation, it's a beneficiary legislation, specially created for women, and it is a gender-specific legislation, okay? Now, then there's an important case, students, that I'll share with you. This is Ganesh. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
The name of the case is Ganesh versus State of Maharashtra and Shantabai versus Rajendra. These are two cases and they've been decided together. This is where Bombay High Court comes in. The Bombay High Court has said, while dealing with the maintenance claimed by the grandmother from the son, and where the son was absent from the grandchildren under the Domestic Violence Act, because she had no means of maintenance, of maintaining herself, and the son was not there. So here the court said that the duty falls on the grandchildren, the grandsons, to take care of their grandmother and provide her maintenance under the Domestic Violence Act. Okay? And they cannot commit violence against her. They cannot abuse her. Now, there was a question regarding the retrospective applicability of the Domestic Violence Act. What is retrospective application, students? That it applies before the Act came into existence. That was a question. For some time, it was said, no, it should apply only from the date the Act came into existence. But now the situation is different. There was a case decided in the year 2012 by Supreme Court. The name of the case is D. Bhanot versus Sarita Bhanot. 2012, 3 SCC 183. Here the court said that if a wife has shared a domestic relationship with her husband in a shared household, even before the coming into existence of this Act, she can invoke the provisions of the Act. So it has got a retrospective application. More so, students, it can also be used by a divorced woman if she is not being able to maintain herself for some reason. She can also invoke the provisions of the Act, because once upon a time, she did share a domestic relationship and shared household with her husband. Okay, there's something similar to Section 125, if you look at Section 125 of CRPC, where a divorced woman can also seek maintenance under Section 125 of CRPC, where the woman is neglected. Because the idea is that the woman does not become a destitute, is not thrown on road, doesn't become a beggar. Okay, the idea is to protect her. That is why the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act came into existence, because the right to life, the right to live with dignity, the right to not being raped, the right to not being sexually abused, the right also of residence, which is today a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution, has been included indirectly through judgments under the Domestic Violence Act by the Supreme Court of India. It has got a wide amplitude and a wide application. And one thing you must remember, students, that jurisprudence in any law, in any field of law, be it women-related, child-related, elderly-related, property-related, grows every day. And when the society grows, even the law grows. The society changes, the law changes. The mindset of the judges change. Of late, the Supreme Court judges have given such dynamic judgments relating to women. Okay, they've also talked about constitutional morality. And they've drawn a distinction between constitutional morality and public morality, social morality. Okay, and these are very significant, where we take into account of empowering women or making them stronger, and at least they can come near males, in the power relations. Though still, we who stay in the urban areas, we who are educated, may be able to make use of these rights or these laws, but the larger population of women in our country and even across the globe are yet to get liberated. But even we people who are liberated, who are progressive, we as women do suffer at home and even outside at the workplace. I can frankly share with you, and I've shared with many of my students, that even today when I drive, I hear comments on the road. I may be in the right lane, but I still hear a comment because a woman is driving. Okay, so the mindset is not changed. The mindset is not changed. A woman will not look after her body first, her health needs first. She may feel tired, but she'll continue working. She may have temperature, she'll continue working. She's the last person at home to eat the food, even today in some families. The martyr image that has been created by religion, the martyr image that has been created by the Sita script, as we may call it, if we discuss the Sita script academically, okay, we can say that that is reinforced every day in each one of us. It is high time that men came forward. It is high time that men played a proactive role and gave some respite to women. That is why we say that we do not want to segregate the sexes or the genders. That is not the idea at all. We are interdependent. We cannot do without each other. Okay? We want the men to join us. We want the boys to join us. Okay? To join us and fight for our rights. To join us and improve our status in the society. To give us that freedom, that space that we would like to have to develop and grow, which is not only a right under Article 21 of the Constitution, but is a basic human right accepted across the globe and at the international level. It's a basic human right. Human rights of women. We talk about women's human rights. All these are human rights. Okay? We are all educated. So we cannot have rights which, maybe like we can't be like animals. Even animals have rights. We talk about animal rights. We see the way a lion would probably recognize his, person who brought him up. Later, if he meets her or him and run to him, we've seen in videos. We see a dog running towards the owner. Yes? So we are human beings. Okay, so these are the different aspects that we can deal at home with violence committed, at home, gender injustice at home. Charity begins at home. We have to start changing at home. And I can tell you, students, when I did my PhD on crimes against women within the family, okay, and I did empirical study, I visited police stations, I visited women's cells, and I used to go to women's cells. I visited women's cell in Rohini, in Nanakpura, and a few others. And when I talked to the police personnel over there, and I asked them, women, when they come and they want to lodge complaints, what's your reaction? You know what they told me at that time? It was 2000, probably, before 2004 also. They said, मैम we tell them कि अगर मारता है तो प्यार भी करता है, सुबह ठीक हो जाएगा, सुबह तक ठीक हो जाएगा. So they don't understand what is love actually. They connected with physical love only. Love is beyond that. Love is concern. Love is affection. Love is respect. That is what is love. It is not only physical love. So they think, okay, if a man loves a woman physically, she'll be happy. That's not true. They have to understand that. That's why many of these police personnel note down the complaints in their diaries. They don't lodge it as an FIR. So it's underreported. And I remember there was an incident where a woman in Delhi University, she was a reader. She got married to a man or a boy who she knew for some years. And, she loved him. He loved her. And after marriage, she was shocked to discover that when they were going for dinner to the dining room, they had some argument. And the same boy that she knew when she was unmarried slapped her. She was taken aback. She was stunned. She was frozen. She knew him for years. She said, is he the same person? Is he the same person that I knew? Then she thought, maybe I'll give myself some time. And she gave herself some time. She continued living in that house, but his habit of beating did not stop. It continued. And even when they left the house, thinking that maybe when they lived separately from the in-laws' house, things would improve, but it did not. So this is again what the little children, the little girl child imbibes when she sees her mother being beaten up when she's a child by the father. She thinks it's accepted. That is where women have to break that particular point, and then there'll be a turning point in the lives of all women. Not to accept, right? Okay, of course, there are other violence that I've just talked to you about. Feticide, infanticide. Unfortunately, feticide still continues. And, regarding this feticide aspect, I also know, after doing a little research, that even though we have legislation banning it, prohibiting it, it is criminalized, still there are ways that doctors inform the woman whether it's going to be a boy or a girl, it's like code words. They use code words. For a boy, they'll say maybe Thursday. For a girl, they'll say Wednesday. It's a Wednesday. Okay? Or they'll say Ganesh. Or they'll say something else. There are symbols. There are codes. That's how they tell the woman and her family. So what is required? Sensitization. Sensitization in our country, especially of men, I'll say men and women together, not only women, men and women together, to change the mindset. Okay, now I think I'll go to violence outside the house. I think I have to finish that also. I'll take that aspect. Now, violence outside, we are all aware of eve teasing. We walk on roads, girls are eve teased, bus stops. Okay, there are obscene gestures. There is sexual harassment at workplace. Okay, and there are a lot of rape. There's rape. Before I come to crimes committed against women or violence committed or gender injustice against women or committed against women outside the home, I would like to just dwell upon one aspect of marital rape within the family. Okay, because this is a very important aspect. To date, we do not have any specific legislation, all right? Only to some extent below the age of 18 years, if a girl is married, then also it will be marital rape, or where there is a situation of judicial separation by the court. It comes under marital rape. Otherwise, it is not recognized as a crime. Here again, it's the mindset of the society. Again, I will talk about the parliament, because the parliament, the representatives are all males, very few males, females are there. Of course, in the recent reshuffle of the cabinet, it's heartening to see more women come in. Okay, more women who have come in now. But the marital rape clause, which could be, it could emerge as an offense, has yet to see the light of the day. And why it is not seeing is again the mindset of the men. They feel that maybe a woman would go and complain for even a frivolous issue. Okay, but I just want to say over here that guidelines can be incorporated along with the law, which would give the judge some path to follow before acknowledging, yes, that an offense could come as marital rape or could be considered as marital rape. So here, I think the view of the people in the country, in the society, and even at academic level should be discussed, and there should be more conferences and seminars held specifically on this topic. Okay, but nonetheless, as of now, marital rape can be brought under the Domestic Violence Act as sexual abuse, as cruelty, or even as cruelty under Section 498A. Even under Section 498A. Okay. And if it is brought under sexual abuse under Domestic Violence Act, then the magistrate can also order counseling. You know, this aspect is under the Domestic Violence Act, which means counseling either singly, the man or the woman, or joint counseling. And it is always better that an order is given for joint counseling, because usually it is seen that where the man is counseled, he says things which are different from what the woman is saying. So they don't meet. They're not on the same page. So the man cannot be confronted. It is always wiser to have a joint counseling sessions where the man can also be confronted for violence. Okay? Okay, coming now again to gender justice outside. I'll specifically take to sexual harassment of women at workplace. Now, we have seen that for years together, students, even after independence, we see that gradually some women were coming out to work, more so as teachers, more so in factories, you'll find. Okay, women were coming and working. And many times women were quiet, girls were quiet. They were not mentioning anything, not complaining, because they were fearful that they'll lose their jobs, lose their salary. They had, to earn a livelihood for various reasons. But the number of women earlier coming into the workforce was less. Gradually, more and more women started coming out. Education increased, women received education. So things changed. But unfortunately, even though we had certain sections under IPC, we have Section 509, we have Section 354 for molestation, but there was no specific section or specific legislation to deal with sexual harassment of women at the workplace. Okay? There was no specific legislation. Now, once what happened, Vishaka happened, the case of Vishaka. Vishaka was the state of Rajasthan, right? Now, this woman by the name of Bhavari Devi, she was a development officer for the government, okay, development officer. Her work, her job was to stop or prohibit child marriage in Rajasthan in certain areas, districts where it was happening, right? And she was performing a duty. Child marriage was going on. She stopped the child marriage from happening. Now, there were 3 or 4 feudal, you can say lords, I'll say in quotes, zamidars, so-called, okay? They took offense. They said, how could she have stopped child marriage from happening? Well, they okayed it. And please remember, Bhavari Devi is a Dalit woman. She's a Dalit woman. So firstly, women suffer for more than one factor. One is being a woman. Second, if you're Dalit, you're in worse circumstances. And then if you're poor, you're really in further worse circumstances. Okay? So she was a Dalit. She was a woman. So to take revenge, because she had stopped from the marriage from taking place, she was gang raped by these 3 or 4 men. Now the matter went to the police station. By the time the police took evidence, a lot of evidence was lost. The matter reached from trial court to high court, things like that. They could not get justice. Finally, Vishaka, again, kind of activist and other NGOs, they reached the Supreme Court. And they wanted the law to be changed, and they wanted justice for working women at the workplace. okay, for all working women. And they said that rape or molestation, sexual harassment, all these are violation of Article 14, Equality Clause, Article 15, which talks about prohibits discrimination on the grounds of sex, caste, class, religion, domicile, etc. Article 16, matters of employment. Article 19, freedom of speech and expression, and also to carry out work, occupation, trade, anywhere, any part of the country. Article 21, which talks about right to life and personal liberty. It's a violation of Article right to life and personal liberty, and also right to earn livelihood. That is also part and parcel of Article 21, right to life of a particular person, whether it's a woman or a man or a transgender today. Okay. So the Supreme Court, students, for the first time recognized a woman's right to a sexually harassment place free environment, a good environment at the workplace, as a birthright, as a right under Article 21 of the Constitution of India, as a fundamental right. The court said that it is very sad that the legislature has not come up with the legislation on sexual harassment of women at the workplace. And we have to do the work of the legislature. We are all aware that law is not only made by the legislature. What is the legislature? It consists of lawmakers, parliamentarians. They make the law. But there is another body that makes the law also. That is judge-made law. Judges also make law. So the judges said in this case that where the legislature is absent, where the legislature is not coming up with any legislation, we will step into its shoes and we will come up with legislation, or we will come up with certain guidelines which would take, or which would have the force of law. So in Vishaka's judgment, students, the Supreme Court wrote down what would constitute sexual harassment and at workplace and other guidelines for the employers vis-a-vis the women employees across the public and the private sector. But sad to say, students, even after 16 years of the Vishaka judgment, only then the Parliament came up with the Sexual Harassment Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. So you can imagine the slow pace that the legislature works on such an important topic or area as sexual harassment of women at workplace. And it is a fact, I have been working all my life. I may have suffered sexual harassment at workplace. I think most women who work have faced sexual harassment at workplace in some way or the other. And so the definition of sexual harassment at workplace, which was laid down by the Supreme Court in Vishaka judgment, was incorporated in the legislation on sexual harassment of women at workplace when it was brought into force in our country. And what is important is, students, that even after Vishaka's judgment, there were a number of other cases, whether it is Rupan Dayal Bajaj's case, or apparel export case, or Medha Kotwal's case, or other such cases where sexual harassment continuously took place. And the Supreme Court was admitting all such petitions. Still, the legislature was slow in bringing up the legislation. In Rupan Dayal Bajaj's case, what had happened? And I think she was a IS officer, okay? Yeah, and then there was an IPS officer, and he was an IG probably. And he stroked her back at a party. She did not like it. And you know, she was, in fact, before he stroked her back, he was trying to come near her in the party. where everybody was around, people were invited. They were all mingling. And she continuously kept her chair away. And he continuously kept on coming towards her in that chair, pulling his chair towards her. Okay, there were people who were around who were witness to this. And again, she had to go as under sexual harassment of women at workplace. And of course, the judgment was given in her favor. Now, I'll give you some more cases. I'll just give you the salient features of the Act, students. And I'll open the house for questions if you want. Okay? It's a very sensitive matter. And then I'll just tell you about how gender injustice has been done during COVID-19 period, especially at home. Okay? Now, the sexual harassment at workplace, students. This act, of course, defines it, it takes care of the hostile environment which is there, and quid pro quo, where, if the woman doesn't agree to giving a sexual favor to the employer, she would suffer detrimental consequences, either lose a job or demoted. So this aspect has been dealt with under the Act. And I'll tell you in simple language also. The other is creating a hostile environment in the office, where she's not allowed to work well. Not only between the employer and the employee, the relationship becomes sour, but also between employee and employee. Okay? So it is basically that if she doesn't agree to sexual favors, sexual demands, she would suffer. That is the idea. Now, like showing pornography, sexual advances, trying to touch her, okay, making lewd remarks, sexually colored remarks, whistling, stroking her back, hitting her on her back, pinching, okay, or asking her to pick up a pen from the floor if she's wearing a short skirt. All these things would come under sexual harassment of women at workplace, okay, or she's wearing a sari, commenting on her sari that it's too low, anything that is a comment on her physical appearance. But a friendly hello would not be sexual harassment. It should have a sexual connotation. Okay? Just a touch, a friendly touch, would not come under sexual harassment of women at workplace. That is different. Okay? But with the sexual connotation, with the sexual approach, then of course it will come under sexual harassment of women at workplace. For example, even at the workplace, if the boss calls a woman a bitch, okay, that you're a bitch in an argument, she can object to that. Okay, but if files are not moved forward, but because she's a woman and she's not giving in, that will be sexual harassment. But because of other reasons, then that would not be sexual harassment at workplace. Now that has to be made clear. All right. Then students, regarding who can make a complaint, the complaint has to be made within 3 months. The woman who is subject to sexual harassment, within 3 months. And if there are series or incidents of sexual harassment incidents committed against her, then the time period would begin from the last one of sexual harassment incident will be reported. And then there has to be an internal complaints committee in all establishments, whether the establishment is a private one or a public one. If in the establishment the employees number is 10, then the employer must have a complaints committee over there. If the employee number is below 10, then they will have a local complaints committee, okay, which is different. And usually for all domestic workers, domestic workers, it is the local complaints committee that has to be connected with, okay. Now, the internal complaints committee will have 50% members as women, even the local complaints committee. The local complaints committee would also have SC/ST representatives, which may not be there in the internal complaints committee. And the chairperson of an internal complaints committee has to be a woman. And usually it is the people who are members who are women members, they are usually the senior most members who are taken from a particular organization. And where would this particular act apply? It will apply not only within the premises of, the office, the branch, the organization, But if the woman is traveling, meaning for furthering the cause of the organization, doing work for the employer, whether she's flying, she's going to another place, she's going to another office, there is a branch office, she's going from Delhi to Calcutta to Bombay, to visit another branch office, even going in a taxi, even going with anybody to a hotel, all that would be covered if there is sexual harassment in any place, any stage, it'll come under the Act. Okay, so much so that if a third party comes to the organization where the woman is working and sexually harasses her, that would also fall under sexual harassment of women at the workplace. And the employer has to protect her. Okay? And regarding the employer's duties under the Act, students, there are plenty. He has to disseminate information under the Sexual Harassment Act. He has to tell everybody what the Act is about. He has to paste the guidelines, the do's and the don'ts on maybe the walls or the boards, the notice boards, wherever, that every employee can read. And he has to sensitize the employees. He has to cooperate with the inquiry in case a complaint of sexual harassment is filed by the woman at the workplace, and he has to cooperate with all the documents with the members of the complaint committee. He cannot just sit back or withhold some information. If he does that, he will also be booked under the Act. And once the Internal Complaints Committee gives a decision, it has to be done, I think, within probably 90 days or 60 days. I'm not very sure about the number. And then within the next, in the near future, then the employer has to put the recommendation in practice. It could be an apology. It could be a loss of increment. It could be a demotion. If it's very severe, it could be termination of services. Okay. Usually there is an option. If the organization is covered by its own service rules, the service rules would come into place. If the organization does not have its own service rules, then the rules which are framed under the sexual harassment of women at the workplace would be used, where options are given, under which, some warning can be issued, or increments can be withheld or cancelled, or demotion can be done, or transfer is possible, because if the victim is there and she's very, very badly traumatized because of sexual harassment at workplace. So as an interim measure, the Internal Complaints Committee can order that let the person who has committed sexual harassment against the woman be transferred, or let the woman not come to office for some time. It can be 3 months, it can be some days. And this particular period that the woman stays away on leave is to be considered as paid leave. It's paid leave. Okay, it's not unpaid. She will be paid. That has to be seen. Paid leave, and also paid leave, and it is different from other forms of leave, like different from earned leave, different from casual leave, different from medical leave. It's special kind of leave. Okay, that has to be treated differently. Or if she wants, she could be transferred in another branch in case there is another branch. But if there is none, she can go on leave. And she can also be given counseling if it is required. It is the duty of the employer, again, the organization, to see that she gets the counseling. And if she's hurt mentally or physically, okay, and she suffered a lot of trauma for which she needs medical aid. Medical aid would also be provided at the cost of, again, the respondent, okay, the offender who has committed sexual harassment against her. So that also has to be taken into account. And another point which should be remembered, that in case the woman concerned makes a frivolous complaint, what to do then? Well, like every law is misused, every law is abused. It's not only women-related laws which are misused or abused, students. Every law can be misused. So even sexual harassment, of women at workplace can be misused. So here the woman would also suffer the same consequences. she would also be debarred from coming from work, or maybe her increments are taken, maybe she suffers demotion. All these things can apply to her also. Okay, but there is a limit of 3 months that a woman has to come up with the complaint of sexual harassment under the Act. Okay, when a limit of 3 months is there, it can be condoned by another 3 months under the Act. Right, students? Now, what happens is, and we have seen it in the Me Too movement, that women or girls may have suffered sexual harassment at the workplace and may have kept quiet for years. It's natural. It's very natural, considering that women do not want to be talked about. Women think that the society will not understand. Women think that it will be bad for their reputation. Women think that they would not be respected. Women think they will not get jobs again. Women think that they'll be maligned in the eyes of their friends, their family, and maybe other people also. So women have a lot of reservations because of this, and they generally keep quiet. That is why when we look at statistics, many of these offenses remain unreported. And even if they are reported, they do not at times reach the logical conclusion because of so many fears. Because after all, a woman also wants to lead a normal life, a normal, happy life. So these things subjugate her, burden her, make her withdraw psychologically. But that psychological withdrawal will be manifested in her behavior in some other way, at the workplace or even at home. So that is why at the workplace, she may not be able to give her full, input, okay, her full energies to the work, because you've suffered. You've suffered mentally, and you're always in that fear that, my God, that person is hovering around, okay? Or even if you change your job, you might feel all your life that, you never got justice, right? So these things can actually trouble you for life. So here is where we need a lot of support from the investigating agencies, from the employer, from the peer people, your peer group, your friends, your family, the judiciary. The judiciary also has to play a proactive role. Even though all the proceedings have to be in camera, according to the law, you cannot disclose the girl's name, you cannot disclose the woman's name, even the man's name cannot be disclosed. Only what can be disclosed under the Act is what the final thing was awarded, where justice was done to the woman. Either the man was transferred, or the man lost his job, or he suffered maybe 2 increments were withdrawn. When I was in Jamia, and I was the dean, there was a person, okay? And I was also dealing, because as dean, you are always at the top, attending meetings of sexual harassment, all kind of things. Final decision comes to the executive council, where the deans are also there by seniority, and the vice chancellor is there. And one person suffered, okay, he had to, because there was a complaint against him for sexual harassment. I cannot name that person. And he came to me and he lost 2 increments. And he said, ma'am, could you please help me? Because I lost 2 increments because of this. I said, look, law is law. If you've done something, you also need to, accept it then. I mean, I am a woman. Just because you belong to a particular religion, okay, here I'm saying, you don't expect me to help you for that. That would be very, very wrong. I am a very fair person. So you have to see what kind of justice you want. And I've also seen, in somewhere where the girls who have been affected, the girl students, especially where there have been PhD supervisors, okay, where the girls have been affected, and they've made complaints. There have been incidents where they were forced to withdraw. And it's been a non-speaking order. And I did raise my objection that a non-speaking order can be questioned. Okay? Because you have to give reasons as to why the girl withdrew the complaint. Because it could have been under pressure. It could have been under undue influence. It could have been under coercion. So these things should be brought about, because if it is not handled at the organization level, be it the university, be it the hospital, be it any other private or public place, then even though the laws are there for us, we'll continue to suffer, because unless they are implemented in letter and spirit. Okay, right? So this is at the outside the house where we find, and there is another way that women suffer gender justice outside, but also I would just like to point out, not only regarding violence, but even in the labor area, women have suffered outside in employment opportunities. She does not get equal opportunities as men. And a lot of suffering has been experienced by women during the COVID-19 period. As it is in the labor market, even before COVID-19, the labor index has fallen down. And as far as India is concerned, there is a major gap in the gender index, gender gap. My God, India is very, very, very low regarding that. Okay, and in the labor market area, workforce, women have disappeared, even in urban areas. And COVID-19 has played havoc with them. In COVID-19 period, as far as domestic violence, incidents are concerned, students, women suffered, not only in India, across the board. And when the pandemic happened and lockdown happened, the state of UP was the only state where the police said, surprisingly, and it was very pleasant. And it was very pleasant also. They said that helpline of the police would continue during lockdown period in the state of UP, because domestic violence cases would not stop during lockdown. That will still continue. But all other states never bothered about domestic violence during the pandemic lockdown period. That is why there were so many cases which came up later on. And National Commission came up with cases. Geeta Mittal in Jammu and Kashmir High Court, when she was the Chief Justice, she took so moto notice of a particular situation that women were suffering from home. They could not lodge complaints of domestic violence. They were being beaten up. They were not allowed to go out of the house. Many women had lost jobs. Their husbands were sitting at home. And, naturally, violence had increased. So these kind of situations should be tackled very well by the government. All crisis situations, all disaster situations, whether it is pandemic, whether it is war, whether it is any natural disaster, the government has to give priority to women-related issues, because they suffer in gender injustice much more than they would have suffered otherwise, because these things, add to the gravity of the situation. Like in Me Too movement also. Even in the employment sector, the women teachers were axed first from all universities, private universities. I have seen that. Coming from public sector to a private sector now, I've seen women were axed first. So that is what I'm saying, that there has to be a change in the environment, in the policies that are made for the private sector, for the public sector. And the policies should be women-friendly. The policies which address women's issues, families' issues, children's issues, maternity benefits issues. Only then can we say that gender justice has been done to women. I'm not taking the transgender aspect today. It's only women aspect, okay? Because it's too vast. It's too vast. That's why. But then all these measures will also be applicable to transgender also, because they also have the fundamental rights available under the Constitution of India, especially after the decision given by the Supreme Court. Okay, so I think I've kind of summed up everything. If you have any questions now, we can have the house open for discussion. If you want me to continue, I can give you some cases. Anybody would like to ask? Yeah.
Students who want to ask questions, they may unmute themselves, participants.
Otherwise, I'll give you some case law if you want.
Shafi, if you could please unmute and ask your question.
Yes.
Yes, I think we have a question from a participant. Shafi, would you like to unmute yourselves, or would you want me to read the question for you? Yeah, I think yes.
Please unmute yourself and ask the question directly.
There are no questions, huh? Mukesh Kalwani, Mukesh Kalwani has raised his hand.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Same here, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you for a very informative lecture, ma'am.
Thank you, Mukesh.
I have one question, ma'am, and that's actually an experience which I gained during the last lockdown. Actually, one of my domestic worker, or I would say the maid who was working at my home, she suffered a lot of domestic violence. She got beaten up brutally by her husband, and at that time there was no maid who were coming to our houses because there was complete lockdown. But she specially approached me because she knew that maybe I know law or anything like that. She approached me and tried to gain some help from me. And what did I do? I tried to connect with all the NGOs who were working at the ground level. And the difficulty which I faced was that whenever I used to call these NGOs, they told me that directly you have to connect with the woman. I mean, you need to connect us with that woman. And the woman was in such a traumatic state. She is not able to explain the whole ordeal with these NGOs, or she was not able to talk with anybody. So this was the problem and difficulty which I faced. I think the NGOs were not willing to listen to me because they thought that I am either tutoring these cases or try to, aggravate the actual situation, which was not actually existing in reality. So I think, ma'am, should it not be the case that these ground level institutions or the NGOs or even the protection officers, they should be sensitized even more, that the prima facie case should at least be listened first. And then the judgment should be given whether that is an aggravated version or that is not a case perfect or ideal to be taken up further. So
yes, you're right actually, that the NGOs who are working on domestic workers especially, they must actually play a proactive role, and the police should actually lodge a complaint. And during that time, if she was in such a traumatic situation, she should have been actually treated by a counselor or a doctor also. So in domestic violence cases, even in any sexual abuse cases or physical cases abuse, psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors play a very important role, and there has been a judgment given by the Delhi High Court which spells out the guidelines, the way the doctors and these police people should treat victims of sexual violence and other forms of violence, women. And it is given, if you could read the judgment, you can understand all the guidelines. It's a very good judgment.
Okay.
And later on, I think it was recognized by the Supreme Court also in one of its judgments.
Okay.
Okay? Yes?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I'll go through the judgment.
Yeah. Shafi, I think, wants to ask. Shafi has raised her hand.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Geeta.
And this is Dr. Geeta here.
Yes.
First of all, I will appreciate you that it was a very, very informative lecture, and we have gained a lot from your session. And I want to ask one question, ma'am. I want to ask whether the illegitimate childs are also coming under the ambit of this domestic violence act, because you have told that everyone is falling under the ambit of this act. So just one question.
Yeah, by implication. By implication they would, because a foster child is covered. Okay?
Yeah.
A foster child is covered, a stepchild is covered, adopted child is covered, a natural born child is covered. So why should an illegitimate child not be covered? Illegitimate would mean a live-in relationship, no?
No, ma'am, I am asking about that if some party has some illegitimate child, the child is living with all the family. Then if one person in the home is just having some violence against the child, that child, then whether the child are given some right here, or he or she is coming under the ambit of this act?
Geeta, this illegitimate child, I want to ask you, is living with the family. You
Yeah.
said, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. But this illegitimate child came from where?
So I just want to give some illustration that if the husband has one illegitimate relation outside the marriage, and the husband take that child into the home, then the child is in home, then some person is committing something like abuse of that child. Then what kind of a remedy that child have?
Yeah, by implication, I think it will be recognized. I don't think the courts will say they won't come. It will have it will interpret it in favor of the child.
Okay,
because
right,
you cannot deny the benefit of legislation. It is not the child's fault.
Yeah.
And in any case, the father is there, no?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The
Yeah,
father,
is there. Yeah, the father of the child is there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So because of this is beneficial legislation, that's why the child is coming under the ambit of this act.
Of course, this will be because it's a beneficial legislation. It's an enabling legislation. The interpretation given by courts would grow in the years to come as cases come, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the idea is not to restrict the benefit of the act. The idea is to give women more and more benefits, which should be given. Where justice is done, isn't it? And as it is, a child is given a lot of justice by the courts. Usually you see, the courts will always do things which is in the interest of the child.
Right, ma'am.
If you look at judgments relating to maintenance, to custody, it's always in the interest of the child.
Yeah. Do we have any kind of judgment in this favor?
I don't know, but I can check, Geeta, and let you know. Maybe you could connect with me on my email address.
Please let me know.
Yeah, I'll have to check, and then maybe you can have my email ID. And if you write to me, I can answer that.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Manjula Batra again, back in the same virtual platform.
Yeah, Bhavna. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, ma'am. I was about to thank my colleague who has brought you in this platform, Dr. Shweta Gagneja. Though I was not able to log in from my laptop, but now I'm logging in from my phone. I heard you, ma'am. You are always an inspiration, and I date back my memories to my LLM days, wherein you were the teacher behind what all I am today with respect to gender laws, domestic violence, patriarchy. And I still remember, if I take my memories back again to that classroom in Jamia, Milia, Islamia, when you were doing a role play on patriarchy, and the way you used to say, you used to walk in the classroom and say, docile, shabby, polite, introvert. And I was like, ma'am, and feminine. So I was just being very nostalgic, and I was reminding your session. And you are such an embellished and fortified speaker, ma'am. And what really I am today in my teaching profession, I owe it to you. So it is for all the wonderful audience who are a part of this program, the Gender Justice Cell, the organizing committee, Shilpa ma'am, and all of you. I must shout out and admit and acknowledge that this Gender Justice Cell is doing a wonderful job. They are bringing wonderful speakers, and Manjula ma'am is my iron lady. And you remember, Manjula ma'am, when you were the dean of Jamia Milia, we used to say tigress on the seat.
Oh my God.
So I was again reminded of all these things, and you still look that wonderful and pretty, ma'am. Thank you so much for connecting all of us with your words of wisdom. You speak from the heart. That is your quality. Whatever you speak comes from the heart. So beauty with brains is again a phrase that can be given to you.
My God,
thank you again, Shweta ma'am and Shilpa ma'am. Thank you so much. And all the participants who are a part of this program, we must contribute and acknowledge the efforts of Manjula ma'am. And thank you for sparing your time, ma'am, and getting connected to us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bhavna. You were a wonderful student and you've been a wonderful colleague also. And it's always a pleasure to see you. And, I won't be able to sleep tonight. You praised me so much. But I think during the COVID-19 pandemic period, is something to feel good about. Really, yes, really. Yes, and I'm glad that you still remember my lectures. Thank you so much, Bhavna. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Privilege is all ours. Thank you,
Thank you, thank you. I think Shafi has a question. Shafi.
Yes, Shafi has a question, but I guess he's not been able to unmute himself. Shafi, I'm going to read the question if you're not able to do that.
Please try again once.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Am I audible?
Shafi, yeah, he's on.
Yes, Shafi, you're audible.
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening,
Actually, there was some connectivity issue. Ma'am, thank you for the very wonderfully enlightening us. My two basic question is, the first question is, you talked about Me Too movement. So I want to ask, do you think that we need such more movements like Me Too as compared to laws for controlling issues of harassment, as it encouraged women to speak up and fight? Second is, you talked about internal complaint committee, like in education institutions, it was earlier GS Cash. You must be knowing that. Right. And you quoted a case from Jamia, Milia, Islamia. In fact, in 2019, while I was working on this sexual harassment cases in my institution, that is Aligarh Muslim University, I came across so many cases, but the victim didn't dare to speak up. I went to internal complaint committee also, and I asked, how do you people work? So they just said, see, when we get a case, we send the show cause notice to the accused, and if we get any witness, then we proceed further. Otherwise, we leave the case there only, and we don't do anything for that. And I was shocked to hear that. I mean, is that the process to work with it? So how do you suggest and what do you recommend to control such cases in educational institutions? Thank you so much.
Shafi, I agree with you, and I'm very happy that you've put this question on this platform, because you are right. Okay, sexual harassment complaints are not encouraged. Unfortunately, they're not encouraged. And people don't realize that it's very difficult for girls to come forward and actually complain. And if really somebody is actually harassed, only that person would come. Maybe a small percentage where you want to take revenge for something. Okay, usually women will not do it, because you become talk of the university. You become talk of the university, you become talk amongst your friends. So here, I think the committee that is being organized or established by the Vice Chancellor, you should see that fair people are in that committee, and there is no favoritism. There is no favoritism, and of course it has to be women dominated, and speaking order should be given. That should be made compulsory. And why are they just being quiet? Because I've experienced it at Jamia. And in the meeting, I cannot, because it was confidential. I was the dean. I did say that it was not correct to just send the papers up like this, withdrawn, complaint withdrawn. I said there could be questions raised by the authorities in the parliament. Because this is where the university has to, and I think sensitization is required, Shafi. If sensitization of the employees, all employees of the university, everybody should be sensitized on sexual harassment or workplace law. And they should understand what is sexual harassment, because in India, many men, at different places of work don't know what is sexual harassment. They think that if they say, oh ho, aaj tum kitni khoobsurat lag rahi ho, tum zinat aman lag rahi ho, ya tum aise lag rahi ho, whatever, they don't understand what is harassment different from sexual harassment. They don't know that whistling can be sexual harassment at workplace. So they have to be educated and sensitized. वो सोचेंगे लड़की को अगर compliment नहीं दोगे, जो उसकी compliment on her body or something like that, she would not probably agree to coming with you or things like that. So there has to be a difference. Of course, Shafi, I agree with you. A girl and a boy could be dating, okay, at the workplace. Okay, there could also be a situation where there is a teacher and he'll marry a student. There have been cases. But then it should not be causing through sexual harassment, the result should be, the consequence should be not out of sexual harassment at workplace. It should be otherwise. So that is what is important. I was in a sexual harassment, anti-sexual harassment committee. I've been in a number of committees in Delhi University also, and also at Indian Law Institute. And in one of the cases at Delhi University, it was a case of law faculty. I will not name it. Okay, what the case was, I mean, who did it cover? I cannot do that. It's confidential. But here the teacher was harassed by one of the students in the evening. They have elderly students also, no? In the evening center. It's again faculty of law. Okay. And the authorities didn't do anything about it. They did have some kind of a committee, but the committee consisted of all men. There was no woman in that committee. Okay, so this was the first mistake because they wanted to sweep it under the carpet. Okay, and they would have been happy if she just wrote he wrote an apology and she pardoned him. They made her do it also, but she was not satisfied. So she went and complained to the university. So the matter was referred by the Vice Chancellor to the main body of the university, of which I was one of the members. And finally, it was given in her favor. Okay, so these are little things which should be looked at by the parent organization, or by the organization, or the faculty, or the department where sexual harassment of women at workplace has happened. Whether it is being done properly or not. You get my point? You see, you have to give encouragement, no? Otherwise, women are going to continue living in fear. They'll be docile. They'll be quiet. They will not give their best forward, whatever they can. Best of energy, best of intelligence, best of inputs. They can't give because mentally you'll be harassed. You'll be thinking about it. Shafi, you ask any girl who is here, any woman who is here, who has not suffered some kind of sexual violence, I'll say eve teasing, anywhere on the road, touching. All of us have suffered. I've also gone through it as a child. Okay, I've gone through it as a teenager. I've gone through it as a student. You ask anybody. But the thing is that they don't come forward because they are scared. So the employer has to inculcate the confidence in them. The employer has to tell them he or she is with them. The Vice Chancellor of an educational institute has to play a proactive role. The registrar, the other sexual harassment members, the other authorities in the university, so that things don't happen again. Look at Tejpal's case. Finally, what has happened? Okay, I mean he's been discharged. After that, I wanted to see it today, but I just forgot. He was discharged, I think, a month ago or 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So
yes,
what happened after that? I don't know. I thought I would look up, but I just forgot. I'm sorry. Because this is what is this?
Something similar happened in MJ Akbar's case also.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I think, ma'am, we should. Okay. Yeah, Shafi, please go ahead.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say that I think we should thank movies like Bombay Begums.
Bombay Begums, even Thappad.
Yeah, we
Even
should.
Yeah.
For bringing this matter in the mainstream media,
Yes, Shweta. Yes.
Yeah. Even during this pandemic, when our life has shifted, online, even like the companies having a global presence, like multinational companies, now what they have done is like our law sexual POSH Act, basically. This is applicable only against the women. Women only can take the benefit. But they have laid down their code of conduct in such a manner where even a man can take the benefit of the sexual harassment.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, there can be instances, there will be instances where there'll be few. There'll be few. Of course, definitely. I agree with you. I agree with you. Though this particular legislation is again gender specific.
Yeah, this is gender specific.
Yeah, they can be made gender neutral in the years to come and soon, because I know about it. There are cases where men also have been harassed. Okay.
But I think our society is not yet mature enough to make it a gender neutral law.
Yeah. For some time.
Yes,
but there are people who are working on this, because mostly women are exploited. Women are exploited, isn't it? Yeah.
And even this pandemic has changed the definition of workplace as well, because like now we are sitting in our AC rooms, so this is a workplace.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a workplace.
But there is a remark coming against you which is sexually colored. It'll be sexual harassment. Yeah, of course.
Yes, then act is very much applicable.
Yeah, it'll be applicable.
Yes.
Definitely. That's another point.
Yes.
Sexual harassment online. Yes. So, Yes,
Shafi, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So it was like really nice hearing you. Another point I want to raise is I talked about this education institution and you answered it very nicely. My point is, while I was working on that paper and when I went to that internal complaint committee, the chair was a female faculty member, right? And I talked to her and these were her replies. So my point is, are women party to encouraging this like harassment or patriarchal norms? I mean, is it something like what Belooks say, patriarchy has no gender?
Yes, Shafi, you're right to some extent. There are women also who think the way men think. Women are also patriarchal in the mindset. That is true. That is a fact all around us. At times, women may not realize they are being patriarchal, but they are being patriarchal. And at times, women might want to subdue the complaint, mellow it down, make it look very soft. Have a reconciliation. Okay, let it go. Because again, it is coming from the top. It's coming from behind. Okay, who's saying that, let the person go. Let it be resolved. That's why I told you, Shafi, that the Domestic Violence Act talks about counseling singly or joint counseling. And when it was placed before the parliamentary committee, it was actually joint counseling, but they dropped it. They didn't. It was mandatory joint counseling. They said no, make it singly, because they thought, because in singly what happens is, single counseling, they can actually make the woman understand certain things and again make her mellow down. That no, you be soft, things will be okay. Like they do it even in divorce matters or in complaint matters, that no, your husband is okay, he loves you, your family is there, your children are there, you shouldn't be so aggressive. This is what happens. This is what happens, right? So here also, again, the members of the Sexual Harassment Committee are 50% women. And if it is coming from the top level, they've been told to act in a particular manner. That's where the catch is. That's where the catch is. And you have to,
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. One question is just coming into my. May I ask the question? Just this is some sharing I want to share with you, ma'am.
Yes, Geeta.
Hello, yes, Geeta.
Ma'am, I want to share one thing that sometimes we are saying that एक औरत ही औरत की दुश्मन होती है, मैम. ये बोला जाता है हमेशा. जब हम डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस एक्ट के जब अंदर आते हैं हम ऐसा ही क्यों होता है कि एक लेडी है वो दूसरी लेडी को ही क्यों एक्सप्लॉइट करती है या वो ही क्यों उसके बारे में गलत या कुछ ऐसा करती है? What is the philosophy behind this? Because you are a very knowledgeable person, that's why that I want to ask to you this question, that why this thing is happening.
This feeling of controlling.
Yeah.
What is patriarchy? It's actually controlling. जल्दी घर वापस आओ. आपको लड़कों से बात नहीं करनी. आपको शॉर्ट्स नहीं पहनने. शॉर्ट ड्रेस नहीं पहननी. Control. So women also get that, that kind of pleasure in controlling. It's actually manifesting patriarchal sentiments, patriarchal nuances from them also. It's coming out. You know what? When I bring up my daughter, I've been bringing up my child. I've also had this conflict in me. Because our society is like that, I've also been telling my daughter, Akeli raat ko nahi aana itna late. Because why? Why do we say that? We are worried that there might be some crime committed against our child. Nirbhaya happened, no? Nobody went and helped. Even now rapes are being committed or street things are happening. Nobody comes and helps. They may be police patrolling, but they're not there when you need them. Somebody had said, tell the men to come home early. Women will be safe.
Yeah.
Tell all men to come home by 6 o'clock. Women will be safe. Let the women come whatever time they want. They'll be safe. So, Geeta, it is again, sometimes the women also think like men. They want to control. Or however they've been controlled, they want to reinforce. They want to carry it forward. Like I told you, a girl sees her mother being beaten up by her father. She thinks, when I grow up, if my husband beats me, maybe it's accepted. My mother accepted. So I'll also accept. You understand?
Yeah,
it's a vicious circle. Somebody has to break it. Somebody has to break it.
Yes, ma'am. We have to take initiative, Sam.
Yeah, proactive role. We have to be strong and break it. It'll be tough, but it's not impossible. It'll be difficult, but it's not impossible.
Right.
We've come a long way. Even today, if we think, we've come a long way.
Okay? At least we have started the conversation, ma'am.
Exactly, Shweta.
Yes,
having conversation, having dialogue. Okay, it is reaching the government, it's reaching the institutions. Otherwise, all these institutions, be it political, social, cultural, economic, all are male dominated. All are male dominated. How many women vice chancellors would you find? You know, when I was given offers outside Delhi to join NLUs, okay, there are offers because once you become dean, you get offers. Okay, because you've got administrative experience. Everybody gets. I didn't go again. Why? Because my daughter was here. Again, a woman has to give in because family is more important. There's nobody to take care of the children. So here, there's lack of support. If I had support, I would have gone. You understand? So this support system must come for us so that we can fly.
Yeah, ma'am. Definitely.
The support system must come for us. Because we have the potential to fly. Isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. Understand, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mimantha, I guess, ma'am, Mimantha has a question.
Yes, Mimantha.
Greetings, ma'am. I feel so delighted to hear you, like lots of experiences and so many cases. Like I also experienced something, but before like telling my story, I want to say that like before joining this course, I could hear people say that gender sensitization के लिए भी कोई course होता है, like this is very normal. आपको उसके लिए modules नहीं चाहिए, courses नहीं चाहिए. So even I also thought that at a point, but during these modules, I could see that yes, these modules makes a difference. Like I was taking a class. And there was a discussion going on where there were students who were 45 and 50 years of age and who were basically owning companies.
Okay.
Now, there was a discussion that where I basically put forward my point saying that, sir, I have got this work to do and I won't be able to make this work like what you are saying. I wouldn't be able to do that. And at the same time, there was a person and who was owning a company and he stated that, yes, sir, I'm owning a company. I also have a work. Now, at that point, my professor told me that, Mimantha, you cannot use the word work here. Why? Because you are a student or you are a girl doing household chores and you are not the one who is doing work. So that means a person or a male who's owning a company and who is doing work there can be termed as work, but a girl who is sitting or who is basically doing studies or the household chores cannot term that thing as work. So I couldn't argue there. I put forward my points, sir, that you have been misunderstood. I didn't mean to say that. Now I was in ambiguity for so many days, like जो मैंने किया वो सही था या नहीं था, या मुझे बोलना चाहिए था उस पॉइंट पे या नहीं बोलना चाहिए था. So I think that it is only these modules that help us think that way, because there are so many people who are still not aware about these inequalities that happen day to day. So I would like to ask your opinion, like if you would have been in my place, what would you have answered to my professor?
Mimamsa, it's about household chores, isn't it? Unfortunately, in our country, household work is not considered productive work. There are countries like New Zealand, which have got legislation which consider household work as paid work. So even in India, a few weeks ago or months ago, if you had watched NDTV, there were programs regarding that household work should also be considered, must be considered as productive paid work. Because it is this work which is enabling and facilitating other members to work outside. Okay, so how can you leave these people high and dry? So even household chores should be coming under productive work and should be taken as contributing to the nation's growth production. That's what I'll say. And it is, in some countries, it is being acknowledged, and you were not wrong. You were not wrong at all. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. One more thing I would like to add, like if we talk about the Nirbhaya case, as you said that like it took so many years, as we all know. Now I read it somewhere, I'm not sure, but it said that judges of the Supreme Court says that we are not the ones who give life, so we cannot take lives. So is that the only reason that there is so much delay in the capital punishment? I would say because we knew that all the person who were behind the crime were caught within few days. I really appreciate DCP Chaya for that, because she was the one who could do that in such a short period of time. But then also the justice was delayed for so long period. So what do you think about the same?
The delay was done because of the procedural law. You know, in our country, we follow what England follows. Let 9 people go, guilty people go free, lest one innocent is punished. Okay, so we have to prove the offense of the accused beyond all reasonable doubt. So a lot of options are given to the accused to make applications, petitions for, you know, this and that, till the time the decision is taken. But I agree with you that the lawyers also delay, and the state, that is the judiciary, is also responsible for the delay in such matters, because we want justice to happen. But then they are cautioned because our philosophy of justice is like that in our country. So the procedural law, which is there, should be curtailed, should be clipped and reduced and made faster. And the number of appeals which are there should be cut also.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. That's it. Any other question? Yeah, they're all faculty people. Bhavna, Shefali is a faculty also?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
She's also a member of Gender Sensitization and Equality Initiative Club.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am, for your so bringing us into so valuable information. And I really want to thank today Shweta ma'am also for these modules. It also changes my life too, you know. Shweta ma'am, thank you so much for making me part of this club, and thank you once again, ma'am, to you.
Yeah, somebody said something. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for inviting me here, and it was a pleasure, being with you and having an interaction with you. Thank you, Shweta.
Thank you so much, ma'am. But I request Shilpa ma'am, please propose a formal vote of thanks to ma'am.
Yes. So as we come to the end of this wonderful, delightful conversation, ma'am, during these pandemic times, what we miss the most is a good conversation. Yeah. And across this online platform, I think we really have had a wonderful conversation on this very technical and a very difficult topic, but your insight, your expertise, your knowledge has made it so beautiful that all of us are carrying a new perspective, about gender violence, how home sweet home is not really so sweet for some women. A dreadful dungeon, caught with violent partners, violent family members. So that entire concept of looking inward towards our own homes, that was beautifully laid out with your, with your talk. And also the workplace, the laws that you actually laid out for our students was really, it came out alive. There are no words that I can actually express to thank you, ma'am. I echo every word that Bhavna said, although I don't have the privilege of being a student. I can exactly understand how she must have felt listening to you. And I thank Shweta ma'am for inviting you and making us all a part of your knowledge and source of your experience of being a part of this. Thank you once again, ma'am. And I also request Shweta ma'am to speak.
Yeah,
thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. I'm very touched.
For discussing the nuances of Domestic Violence Act, Sexual Harassment Act. Thank you for your benign presence, ma'am. Thank you from bottom of my heart. Thank you on the behalf of all the participants, ma'am.
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And just before we close, ma'am, may I request all the participants to please turn on your cameras so that we can have a picture. I would
group photo time, ma'am.
That's nice. That's nice.
I think a big thank to NK sir. I don't know if he's there, and Mohan Garg sir for joining us in the session today.
Yeah.
So thanks to all the gender champions, to all my fellow members of the club, and thank you all once again for joining us on this wonderful session.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, and by mistake, I think, ma'am. By mistake.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good
evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.